booktube, my name is Sarah and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with a weekly reads. In my weekly reads videos, I talk about all the books that I finished this week and let you know what books I am currently reading. So to start off with, what's in my flamingo cup? It has been warm, like it got up to a big high of +4 today, and so I had showered and all that stuff, and I was just like, oh, it's so hot in this apartment. So I made a cold tea as opposed to a hot tea, and this is David's Tea's frozen raspberry, I think is the name of the tea, and it's a special steeper that I have that I bought. I have two of these. One has flamingos and one does not, but I felt today was a flamingo day, so we're going with that. And this is a super, super yummy raspberry tea. It's good hot or cold, but especially cold. The ice has melted. I've been, as you can see, drinking some of it while I've been kind of getting my video set up and my notes all taken and all that fun stuff. So yeah, so that is what is in my drink mug today. The other thing, of course, that I want to talk about before I get into the books, like I did last week, is I want to shout out a booktuber. Now, she actually has, I believe, more subscribers than I do, but I am a big fan. I just found her 6 or 8 months ago, and I didn't realize she'd been commenting on my videos for quite some time, and I only just recently realized that she actually had a booktube channel, and that is Shannon Ridler. I hope I'm saying the last name correctly, but of course I will post a link to her videos in the description box below. She is in the city, like I think she lives in Toronto, same as me. So that is very cool because she did a vlog over Christmas where she went to the Eaton Center, and I'm like, oh, I know where you are. So that's pretty awesome that we kind of live in the same town or city, large city. Toronto is a pretty big city. Yeah, so she is super adorable. Her laugh is infectious. I love that she kind of can make fun of herself and laugh it off, and I feel I do that as well. She's another one that I really like watching her because, not just because of the book she talks about, but her personality is fantastic. And she doesn't really edit as far as I've ever seen. And, you know, it really does feel like you're just kind of sitting down talking to a friend, which is my favorite kind of booktubers. And, you know, I do edit a bit, like, because unfortunately the way I have to film on my camera, I can only film so much at a time, and then I have to end up piecing it all together, but I don't really edit out a lot of what I say. There's a lot of ums and what have you in my videos, and not that she does that too, but it still does feel very, it's very organic, let's put it that way. She reads all kinds of books, like literally, she reads just about everything, from romance to sci-fi to mystery. I know she's participating in March Mystery Madness, and you know, she's absolutely fantastic, and I just absolutely adore her, and please go check out her channel. Alright, so let's get on to the books, shall we? If I could open up my little document here. You'd think I'd have this set up to go. Cheers, everybody. It's been a long day. I'll tell you about what's going on at the end of this. You'll get more of an update in this in my vlog that I'm filming for this weekend, but it's not been a good couple days. Let's just put it that way. All right, so I finished a grand total of 4 books this week. Yay me. And one of them was actually a little teeny, and I mean teeny tiny novella. Spoiler alert, I was a little disappointed in it, but we'll get into that in just a second. Okay, so where is my list here? It is. Okay, so 4 books I finished this week. The first book that I finished this week was The Hidden by Heather Graham. This is book number 17 in the Crew of Hunters series. It's narrated on audio by Phil Giante. I gave it 4 stars, and it has an average rating of 4.02 stars on Goodreads. I got 3 challenges completed out of this one. The Triple RC challenge for February, challenge number 5, which was Groundhog Day, which was, I'm trying to remember what it was now. Oh, something about weather on the cover, and there's snow on their mountains on the cover right there, so it counted. The next one was for the Stacking the Series challenge. This is my 6th out of 55 books that I plan on reading for that challenge. And for the Fairy Tale Spell Out, I got the H in Chicken Little and the G in Nightingale for this one. So I really enjoyed this. This is one of my favorite Crew of Hunters that I've read to date. Some of them, not that they got monotonous or I didn't enjoy them, but this one I enjoyed more than some of the ones I've been reading lately. This takes place in Estes Park, Colorado. right around where Stephen King based The Shining, or The Shinning, for those of you who watch The Simpsons. So they actually, the characters go on a tour of that hotel in this book, which is kind of fun. So the whole thing is that it's very much like a settlers, you know, when they first started settling in the West, and it's kind of this couple owns this home, and they have a museum dedicated to the original people who own the land, and, you know, stuff like that. And the main character, Scarlett, she takes a picture with her camera of this buck, like, you know, out in the forest, and because she's just taken this job and gotten there, and she goes to show her boss, and when he looks at the camera, it's actually pictures of 2 dead bodies. And she looks at it, can't figure out how that got on the camera. That's not what she was taking a picture of. And then, like, the next thing she looks again, and the pictures are gone. So, kind of very, very creepy. That's what I think I really enjoyed about this one. It got, like, to the really creepy extent. The male lead in this story, Diego, he actually featured in the last book, in book number 16, the one that took place in Miami, The Forgotten. He was partnered with the male lead, Brett, I think was his name, or is it Brent? I can't remember. But they were partners, at Miami Cops, they were partners. So this is now his story, and Scarlett is actually his ex-wife. They married, like, they met and married very quickly, and then they ended up divorcing because he was kind of married to his job, you know, with the Miami PD. And, but because of these pictures found on her camera, and then there's actual, after the fact, these 2 dead bodies actually show up in the forest. So, of course, because, you know, her boss kind of saw these pictures on her camera, he assumes, you know, I mean, he tells the police. He doesn't think she's the killer, but he tells the police. And she's arrested, so the first person she calls is Diego, and then the story kind of goes from there. Some of the other members of the crew of hunters show up as they usually do, which I really enjoy. And, yeah, again, the history is really cool. It being in Colorado was very cool. I really, really enjoyed this one. I really like them narrated as well. I highly enjoyed the narration on these. And the one thing I'm finding, the more I'm listening to, or the more I'm reading these Crew of Hunter books, to me they always used to be, you know, I always considered there to be, you know, a good amount of sexy times in these books. Really now, the more I'm reading them, because I'm reading one every month, there really isn't. That part of it is actually relatively tame compared to some books. So if it's something that bothers you, and that might be a reason why you're not picking them up, or you're a little hesitant to pick them up, you know, if you can get past, I mean, they're not overly graphic. It's one of the ones, like I like to say, it happens, but you're outside the bedroom when it happens. You know what I mean? So yeah, so really, really enjoyed it. A favorite of mine so far in the series, and yeah. The next book that I finished was Duty Bound Guardian by Terri Reid. This is book number 2 in the Capital K9 Unit series. I gave it 3 stars, and this was unfortunately on the lower end of 3 stars. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 4.14 stars, so don't go just by what I say. Buy just what I say, I should say. I got 4 challenges completed out of this one. This was another one for the Triple RC Challenge for February. It was number 4. Shortest month, read a shorter book. This book came in at around 220 pages. This was book number 7 out of 55 for my Stacking the Series challenge. And I actually got the District of Columbia for the Where Are You Reading? Trying to read a book from one book from each of the 50 states, including DC, and this was my DC book, so yay. And then for the Fairy Tale Spellout, I got the D in Ugly Duckling and the T, one of the T's in Little Mermaid. This was a good enough story. I enjoyed it. There was something, though, that bothered me so much that it just kind of overshadowed everything else. Do you know what I mean? So the whole premise of the story is that, is it Lana? Lana. She is a junior curator at this museum in Washington, D.C. And one night while she's working at the very beginning of the story, a priceless artifact that was owned by George Washington is stolen. And Adam is the canine cop who comes in to investigate. And that's the whole basis of the series. It's this team of canine handlers, police dog handlers, I guess. And there's also an overarching story about the murder of a senator's son, and some other woman is missing. So you don't necessarily have to read these books in order, but I think to get the full mini-series effect, you might want to. Again, they're relatively short and pretty easy to read. So anyway, so she is kind of, you know, being blamed for stealing this because she was the only one there. You know, there's no fingerprints. There's nothing on camera. The fingerprints that are last on this, because they not spoiler alert, it kind of happens at the beginning. They find it. Hers are the only prints that are on it. So it's kind of like you know, she's trying to figure out what's going on. But behind all that as well is this story about her sister who died a year before. They say she committed suicide, but they kind of believe, even the police are starting to question whether or not she was actually murdered, and whether it's tied into this whole senator's son and stuff like that. Well, anyway, Lana and her sister Rosa, I think the sister's name is Rosa, they had been estranged. And Lana just found out that she has a nephew who's 2. And, you know, the boy has, like, there's no father listed on the birth certificate or anything like that. So she's trying to get custody of this boy. And this is what drove me crazy. She refused to meet with the boy until she knew she had custody, because she didn't want to get attached to him. I didn't get the character motivation. I'm sorry. It drove me crazy every time it was mentioned that, you know, oh, I don't want to meet him because I'm going to get attached to him, and then if I can't adopt him, it's going to be so sad. He's your family. Regardless if you get to be his parent, you know, even if he goes into the foster care system, you know, and ends up with a foster family, you could still be a part of his life. You know, like, don't cut this child off from any family that he might have just because you're afraid of getting it. It was a very flimsy excuse, and I did not like it at all, and it really did bother me. But yeah, just because I would do absolutely anything for my niece and nephew, but, you know, I'm the best auntie ever. I like to joke around about that. It's probably not. Well, my niece and nephew have 2 other aunts. My sister-in-law has a sister and another sister-in-law. So, yeah, there's 3 of us. But as I like to say to my niece, Caitlin, she's my favorite girl, and Jonathan's my favorite guy. But anyway, that's besides the point. So yeah, so I just didn't get the character motivation. That's why I kind of had to bump it down. It would have gotten higher if that hadn't been in there, because it was well written. The characters were well thought out. The whole background story is really good. All of these books, I think, in this Capital Canine Unit series are written by different authors. And there's one thing to write a series when you're the author of all the books. Like, you can follow it really well. But when you're kind of jumping around between authors, it really shows testament to the authors getting together and making sure they have all their facts straight. And, you know, it kind of makes the story that much more enjoyable when you get truly different voices telling this series. So, yeah, I mean, if you could look past that, then go ahead and read it. But, yeah, it's just something that bothered me. The next book that I finished this week was Rock Hard by Nalini Singh. This is the second book in the Rock Kiss series, and it was narrated on audio by Justine O'Keefe. I gave it 4 stars. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 4.06 stars. I got 4 challenges completed out of this one. Another one for the Triple RC Monthly Challenge. Number 6, Super Bowl Sunday. Read a book that has a sports theme. And the main character in this story is a former rugby player. The next one is the my 8th book for the Stacking the Series Challenge. And then I got the Fairy Tale Sampler. I got Rumpelstiltskin. I can never say that properly. But it's read a book with a title that starts with R. Obviously fits. And for the Fairy Tale Spell Out, I got the R in Cinderella and the N in Chicken Little. I really, really enjoyed this story. It was so, so good. This one was very steamy. I mean, if you can't tell from that cover, this book was very steamy. So the whole plot of this book is a man named Gabriel used to play rugby professionally. As they described him and talked about him, I kept thinking David Beckham, like that level of celebrity sports person, because not only is he good at the sport, but he's also very much a celebrity, endorsements and things like that. He's also, the main character in this story, Gabriel, is also heavily tattooed, and, you know, he's kind of got a very tough demeanor. He's that kind of guy. And now that he's out of the sport because of an injury, he is making millions and millions of dollars by buying up these small companies that are kind of like on the verge of bankruptcy and turning them around, essentially. So he comes in for like a year, turns the company around, and then sells it and makes a profit, essentially. Kind of like flipping houses, but for businesses. The woman who works for him, or works with him at this company, you never quite, oh no, wait, it was another book I'm thinking of. The book that, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. The company that he's buying actually own, like, what used to be very, very high-end department stores, like a Macy's or a Saks, something like that. And, but now the company's kind of floundering and things like that. So this one woman who works for the company, she meets up with him on like the very beginning of the book, the very first like prologue, I think even. She literally runs into him like after hours, like late after hours at the office, and actually tries to hurt him with a stapler. She tries to throw it at him, but then finds out that of course he's her new boss. And she's terrified of men. She's terrified of being alone. She's terrified of the dark. Her name is Charlotte. She has a very, very sad and scary backstory. She was abused brutally by an ex-boyfriend, both mentally and physically. So she carries a lot of baggage. And, you know, throughout the course of the story, he promotes her to being his PA or his personal assistant. And this story takes place over a long period of time. I'd have to say at least 6 to 8 months. I mean, this is not a quick romance. And I really, really appreciated that Nalini Singh did this, and she didn't make it quick because of how frightened Charlotte actually, like, she was like that first night when they first meet and she throws the stapler at him. He decides to take her out to dinner. Well, she's so terrified sitting across the table from him at dinner, she can't even eat. You know, being alone in the cab with him is just, she's just frozen. And as for, you know, adult relationships, if you will, nothing like that has happened since this attack or this assault that she had at the hands of her ex. And, you know, as spicy and steamy as this book got, because it did, the leading up to was really well done. You know, Gabriel took care. He, like, when he found out and stuff like that, you know, it was really, really good. I liked the banter between the family. You meet a lot of Gabriel's family. You learn a little bit about rugby. Rugby's one sport I don't know too much about, I'll be honest. But it was interesting. My one thing that dropped the star rating on this book, and it was I found it disappointing, is that what I've noticed now is that because I'm doing this reading a book from every state challenge, is that when I start listening to a book or reading a book, I right away try and figure out where it takes place. You know, not that, you know, I'm going to stop listening to it if it's not a state or whatever that I need, but it's nice to know to see if I can fit it into a slot. So I'm not going back later trying to remember, and I'll make a note of it if I'm going to be able to use it for something. So this one, I'm listening to it and they're talking and talking, and they're talking about rugby, and I'm like, okay, well, rugby's played, like, Toronto has a rugby team. I don't know if it's played as much in the US. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it takes place in the UK. But the narrator had an American accent, and I'm like, okay. And then I remembered, because I read the first book in this series, Rock Kiss, last year, and it was about a rock star. And I was trying to figure out how these two were interconnected, because I knew the first book was about a rock star. But the woman in the first book and Charlotte in this book are best friends, so that's how they're connected. The rest of the books in the series followed the other members of that original rock band, but they went back to do Charlotte's story. So anyway, I'm trying to figure out where this book takes place. Well, then I realized at about the second chapter that it's actually New Zealand, which is very cool, to read a book that's set in New Zealand. But again, the narrator had an American accent, and I was really disappointed, because I think it would have been great to get a narrator with a New Zealand accent. You know, the first book I read it in ebook format, so I didn't get that whole, you know, missing that part of the narration. But I'm kind of disappointed, and that's why I dropped it a star rating. I know it may seem silly, and again, if those of you who won't listen to this on audio, but instead you're going to read it, it's not going to make a difference either way. But for those of you who might decide to read on audio, same as I did, it's just something I noticed and I was a little disappointed about. So even on my Audible rating, I dropped it for that reason. And I think I put that in my, I generally don't leave a review on Audible, but I left it in this case just because it kind of was disappointing. And the rest of the series, I had forgotten, does take place in New Zealand. The author herself, Nalini Singh, was born in Fiji, which is kind of cool. So yeah, and they're so well written. The characters are so well fleshed out. If you can put up with if you're okay with that level of steaminess, I absolutely recommend you check out these books. And you know what? The first book in this series, I didn't like as much. I like this one far better than the first book. And you can read these without having to read the other one. Like, you can read this book without having to read the first one. At some point, the two stories actually kind of merge like this. And you get Charlotte and I can't remember the girl from the first book. But because they're best friends, you know, some of what the friend is dealing with, they talk about in this book. Like, you know, they meet together for ice cream or coffee or something. But again, you don't have to have read the first book to appreciate this one. And the last book, if you want to call it that, that I read this week was Royally Raised by Emma Chase. This is book number 2.5 in the Royally series. I give it 3 stars and has an average rating of 3.75 stars on Goodreads. Again, this is lower, much lower on the 3-star spectrum for how I, rate the books. This book, the reason I decided to read this one is because for my Pick It For Me challenge that I didn't mention in my TBR for March because I didn't have my books picked yet, one of the ones that I'm going to listen to that actually wasn't on my TBR, like I don't have it on my TBR on Goodreads, but the person recommended it to me and I'm like, well, I read the first 2 in the series, and that is Royally, I want to say it's Royally Endowed. It might be, I think. Don't quote me. But then I realized that this book actually comes before book 3 and I'm like, well, you know what, why not? It's a novella. And I looked on Amazon and it's free and I'm like, awesome, even better, I can read it for free. And then I realized why. It's 36 pages. It's a chapter, guys. It's a flippin' chapter. I think it actually appeared in a newsletter that Emma Chase sent out at one point. So the whole premise of this story is it's 20 years after the second book, and Henry is now king, and, his wife is now queen, and it's kind of their children. And I thought, well, it's going to be a story about the oldest girl, because their oldest child is a girl, and she's going to eventually, take over as queen of the country. And she has a bit of an attitude problem. But literally, it was a chapter. It was 36 pages long. It was highly disappointing. I didn't see the point in it. I should actually even drop my rating lower than that. And I looked on Goodreads and people were like, oh, I'm so excited for Jane's story. Jane's the daughter. And I'm like, well, it wasn't a story. Like, you see one scene with her, and she's addressing the press, and she's a very, very stuck-up little witch with a capital B when she does it. And then her father brings her in to have a chat with her about that, and she's totally flippant to him. Now, I think what a lot of people said is that this is setting up a spin-off series of the Royally series where you're going to follow Jane or something like that. But I don't much like her. Just from reading this little bit, I didn't like it. Having it that far in the future, what it did remind me of, though, is when Julia Quinn does the second epilogues with the Bridgerton series. That's kind of like what it reminded me of, like, where are they now kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't see the point. I wasn't super impressed. And to be honest, it made me dislike Jane. And if I will read them because Emma Chase does write good books. But if I hadn't read any of her books, I wouldn't have wanted to continue on with the story about her, because I much didn't like her from the 36 pages I read. So again, to be fair though, it is free. So there is that. So what am I currently reading? I am almost finished The Perfect Match by Kristan Higgins. This is book number 2 in the Blue Heron series, and it's being narrated on audio by Amy Rubinet, or Rubinet. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. So good, guys. This book is so good. I reread The Best Man last year. I've read it, I think, 3 times. The Perfect Match, this one I've only read once. Like, this is a reread for me, but I've only read it once before this. But I'm working my way back through the series again because I think I only made it as far as book 2 and I haven't continued on. Not because I didn't want to, but because I've had so many other things to read. But now I'm going to try and make a conscious effort to get through the rest of the books. So this is Honor's story, and Honor is Faith's sister from the first book. And the whole premise to this story is that she's 35 and, she's pretty much being told by her doctor that her eggs are, getting older and she only has so much time to have a baby and things like this. And she's all upset and she's flustered and she's kind of given her entire life to the family business, which is the winemaking business. And she ends up meeting this guy by chance or whatever, and he needs a green card to stay in the U.S. So they decide to fake a marriage, essentially, is what the background. I don't want to give you too much. I'll talk about it next week when I finish it. I will be finishing this today. I only have, I think, about an hour and a half left on it, so I'll definitely be finishing it while I'm sitting here today. And the other book that I actually plan on finishing today is, Rustling Up Trouble by Delores Fossen. This is book number 3 in the Sweetwater Ranch series. This is, it's a great mystery suspense type story. This again, it's a 3rd in a series. You can read these out of order. I don't see, there's 8 books in the series, but you know me, I read series in order. but you could read them out of order if you wanted to. And essentially this is about a guy who shows up on this woman's ranch, and he's got armed people shooting at him. And he gets shot and gets taken to the hospital, and then at the hospital they realize he has amnesia. He has no idea what happened within this 5-month span. So the whole premise of the story is them trying to find out what happened. Well, of course, the woman that he was there with was a woman that he slept with 5 months ago. And this woman is now 5 months pregnant, so you guys do the math. So he doesn't even remember having this relationship with her. They used to work together, they used to be partners, but he doesn't remember that part of the relationship, if you will. So, yeah, so far it's really good. I'm at about chapter 6, and I think there's like 20 chapters. So I'm not quite halfway through. This is a relatively quick read. It's about 200 pages. I don't have much else to do today, so I will probably be finishing this today. Yeah. So as usual, of course, I want to show you guys what I am knitting on. So I'm currently living in the cutest knitting bag ever. I have a smaller size of this one too, just because it's so stinking adorable. They're adorable little glampers, I guess you would say, or campers or glampers, and then sleeping bags at the bottom. So cute. Anyway, I am knitting on a sweater. I think I've shown this to you guys before, but I can't remember. This is the Campside Cardi, and it's designed by Alicia Plummer, who is my very favorite knitwear designer. I'm knitting this in Madeline Tosh yarn. There's kind of a good representation of the color. And this is the Tosh DK base. It's really soft and squishy. It's 100% wool, so this is something I'm going to have to be really careful of, and, you know, to be very careful when I'm soaking it or washing it, that I don't want it to felt and kind of get ruined. So here's the sweater. It actually kind of looks like a sweater because I've made some serious progress on this. So there's the back. So you can see the holes in it. So it's got this really neat kind of lacy pattern that goes all down the back. This is the back of the sweater. So as you can see, I've kind of got the little armholes here already done. I am almost done the back. I've got, there's actually 4, 1, 2, 3, I've done 3 panels, like 3 different patterns, if you will, or charts for this. And I am on the 4th chart. I'm about to start it. So I'm just going to be adding, you know, like that much more. And then I get to put the ribbing on the bottom, do the sleeves, and then do around. So really, I don't have that much more of this sweater to do. So there it is, the front, like, because it's cardigan, right? But yeah, I absolutely love this. The yarn is so soft and squishy. I absolutely love it. And I have to show you guys, because I like putting stitch markers in. When I used to, I haven't done my knitting podcast in over 2 months. I just haven't felt the want to do it. For those of you who used to watch it or who have followed me over from there, I appreciate that. I just haven't felt like doing it. So this is, you know, I like putting these stitch markers in, but I think I'm going to put them in to show you guys. So, you know, if I show you one of these once a month, show you this once a month, you'll get to see my progress on it. But yeah, it's a little camper because this is the Campside Cardi. I have to make sure the pattern matches the bag, matches the stitch marker. I'm a little goofy that way. So yeah, so I will be working on this tonight and tomorrow, because I've got nothing else to do, because I've got nowhere to go, because I can't go anywhere. For those of you who are going to watch the vlog, I've been filming over the last couple days. I announced it a couple days ago. So if you, again, if you didn't see that video and you're interested, go check it out. I'm also doing a 600 subscriber Q&A on Monday. So, not live or anything, but I'll be filming it on Monday. So if you have any questions for me, either put them in this video or pop over to that video, and I'll just kind of amalgamate them together. And yeah, but anyway, so I'm doing a vlog. So I've talked about this in the vlog, and I'll go into more detail in the vlog. But just to give you guys the short story is that last night I was driving to pick up dinner for my husband and I to get pizza, and I turned a corner off the highway, and the drive shaft on my car snapped. That's not a good thing, just in case you didn't know. The car turned on, like, I immediately threw it in park, and I didn't know that that's what it was that had happened. I'd heard something like crack, and it felt like my tires, like one of them like fell off. Like, thank God I wasn't still on the highway, that I was accelerating to get around the corner, but I wasn't doing the highway speed that I would have been doing. But anyway, I ended up having to call roadside. I had to sit there for like an hour and wait, and it was in the worst possible spot ever, because like literally you come off the highway around the corner, and I was there, and I had my 4-ways on and stuff like that, but you know, I was so paranoid somebody was going to smack the back of my car. But my dad showed up, and with roadside, because he's got a card for roadside assistance. Like, I think you guys call it AAA in the States, and it's CAA up here. and had my car towed literally up the street, and called me this morning, and they're like, yeah, it's the drive shaft. It's not as expensive to fix as I anticipated. Thank gosh. I didn't sleep very well last night. I worry. I'm a worrier by nature. And so I didn't sleep well last night, worrying about how long it was going to be to get the car back, worrying about how much it was going to cost and things like that. So I feel better now because the worry is kind of gone, because I kind of know what's going on. But so it's not expensive to fix, but unfortunately, it's a relatively, it's not an easy part to get. There's a gentleman who they own, the mechanic was telling me, who might be able to rebuild my drive shaft. And if that's the case, I'll get my car back on Monday. Today is Saturday. We only have one vehicle because my husband doesn't drive. Worst case scenario, if they have to order the part in from the States, I'm looking at a week before I get my car back. Luckily, I have awesome family, and my dad, who's retired, he's like, I will drive you to and from work. It's not a problem. And I'm like, you're awesome. So yeah, so that's a good thing. But yeah, so fingers crossed for me, guys, that they can rebuild my drive shaft and I get my car back on Monday, because that would be fabulous. But yeah, so there's just that little bit of story. Like I said, there'll be more detail in the vlog when I do it. So unfortunately, as I was telling the vlog, the rest of the vlog's gonna be rather boring because I'm kind of stuck at home. I mean, not stuck. I could very easily, we have a great transit system for the city of Toronto, but I'll tell you guys, I've had my driver's license since I was 16. I don't take public transit. Not because of any snobby reason. I just have never taken public transit, and you know, I'm not used to it. I wouldn't know where, plus the fact that now I have a car repair bill, so spending money's a little out of the question. But yeah, but anyway, guys, that is it. I've gone on long enough for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any questions or comments or anything at all like that. Videos coming up this week, like I said, the vlog will be posted on Tuesday. I'm going to edit it all together on Monday, like later on Monday. And then also I have my February wrap-up, which is going to come on Thursday. And I have another March Mystery Madness video coming on Friday. But actually, I'm doing an extra video this week because I've been doing extra videos for the whole month of March on Fridays for March Mystery Madness. I'm doing another March Mystery Madness video. I'm going to film it right after this one. And that is a tag. I saw Elizabeth from Lizzie Faye Loves Books do this morning. I was watching some booktube. And she did this tag for anybody doing, like, and she tagged all of us hosts, all of us fellow hosts. And I thought, you know what? It's a quick little video. I'm going to shoot it on Saturday and post it on Sunday. So you guys will get another video from me on Sunday if you're not already sick of me enough. But anyway, guys, that is it for me. Take care. Happy reading. I hope you all have a fabulous weekend. Thanks for watching. Bye.